Welcome to the Entrepreneurial You, the show where Caribbean visionaries share the strategies, stories, and solutions shaping our region's future. I'm your host, Heneka Watkis-Porter, and every week we bring you powerful interviews with Jamaica's top business minds, practical tech talks, and inspiring community features to help you thrive on your entrepreneurial journey. This episode is proudly brought to you by Liberty Business, JPS, Digital Video Concept, Madison Chai, and HenekaWatkis-Porter.com, partners committed to empowering innovation and growth across the Caribbean. We'll be right back. He is a visionary leader transforming Jamaica's snack food industry. As managing director of Bakedbio Foods and Snacks Limited, Levavion Bailon-DeMarquez has led the evolution of the brand from a boutique dessert company, Crav'd Cupcakes, into a bold new player with a flavour-packed popcorn line launching this September. Known for his hands-on approach to brand building and business development, Levion's clarity of vision and commitment to excellence have positioned Bakedbio for local success and international expansion. Today, he joins us to talk about entrepreneurship, innovation, and building a legacy rooted in Caribbean culture. Levion, such a privilege it is to have you here today. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Youth.
Thank you, Heneka. Thanks for having me.
And I have been seeing you around. I mean, I can't believe that you are here at this point in time because I've been seeing you at conferences, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and all these other areas for personal development. Tell me about all of that. Why have you been, just hanging around doing all these things?
I wouldn't say hanging around. Yeah, but the reality of it is that most of these conferences, I go mostly for the opportunities I get there. So most of the persons I now do a lot of business with are persons I would have met through the conference. I've been going to these conferences, like the Jamaica Stock Exchange conference, for about 4 years now. And it's been going rather well. A good amount of our opportunities came there because as Crav'd Cupcakes, we actually did a good amount of work for the stock exchange.
All right, good. And we're not going to get into that right now. I want you to hold that part because what I want to really get into is your upbringing. I mean, you're what, 20 years old now?
19.
You're 19. Oh, you're not 20. Like, I know you've been saying 19 a long time. So I just kind of figure that you're now at 20. So you're 19 years old. Like,
Yes.
even more interesting, right? So tell me about your upbringing as a child or younger. What were you like? What were your interests? Your parental, guidance, things like that.
All right, so to be most persons don't assume this, but as a whole, I'd say I was a very hard child. Like I was a child, I gave problems every day. Like you will always be something. Sometimes it's not even anything dramatic, but my aunt, when I grew up in Clarendon, because I'm from country, I grew up with my grandmother for the most part. And when she died, my aunt was there a lot. And she has a chicken coop. And there'll be so many times where I'm a person where I love food. It's like just you present the wrong thing to me and I don't want it. And I remember there was this day I went into her coop and killed a chicken. And this chicken wasn't even like readily dead. It was like hung on the string ready to go and then it started flaying and I ran with it. And from there, I was like, yeah, I knew in myself, yeah, I gave a lot of problems, but in the end, it all worked out. But my parents were rather hands-on. My mom generally is one of those persons who she strongly believes that your education is a very important thing, and she's a big believer of owning. So is why for me, having a job was a great plan, but I always knew that there was something that I'd want to be the owner of. So the fact that it came this early, I was not expecting, but I knew that it was coming at some point.
You know, it's coming. So tell us about like where you went to school and the subjects that intrigued you.
Right. So when I was doing school, I wanted to be a dentist. So at that time, the plan was become a dentist and then work for a good while, then start my own practice and so forth. So I studied a lot of sciences. I went to Demby High, and that was a great experience. And yeah, that's just about it. I did a lot of sciences, so agri, biochem, and so forth. And oddly, I got the opportunity to mix foods into that because it's just always been a thing that has attracted me.
So, at what age did you move from country? Because I'm a country girl, so I'm from St. Mary, right? So, at what age do you move to town under the clock, as they say?
Right, so I've been back and forth for most of it because my parents, they all work here in Kingston. So essentially, I fully moved to Kingston in, I think, 2021 amidst like the end of COVID. So yeah.
So, you mentioned earlier about the cupcake business that you started. What inspired you to do that? And just talk to us about the genesis of it.
Right. So when I started this, I was in Clarendon, and I had a friend of mine. At the time, he made cakes and cupcakes and so forth. And he was talking to me about it, and he was like, "Oh, this has been going great." I'm like, I would give it a try. And as such, I started baking for like church. So it wasn't like a paid thing; it was a for church thing. But then after a while, I was like, okay, let me try this because if it's working here, let me see what I can do with it. And I remember I had $2,000 saved from lunch money, and that day, I bought box mix, oil, eggs, and so forth. And at the time, I didn't even know how to make frosting, so I had to call him. And I was like, hey, I don't know how to make it, and I don't want to try and spoil because I just used my last $2,000. So can I get some frosting from you? And he was like, sure, let me send you some. So I had to, because we're in Clarendon, I ride everywhere, like bicycle. So I rode the bicycle to him. Like he lives a good 20 minutes away from me. Got it, came back, and from there, so it worked out. I can't say today it's exact profits from that exact one bake, but I can say it went well because at the end of the day, I had 3 box mixes.
Interesting. So, you started entrepreneurship at a very early age. And
Yeah.
to be honest, let me just let our audience know that you are our youngest guest today, right? I mean, of all the times of doing the entrepreneurial you. And so we are very inspired by the work you're doing and where you're going. So you started this cupcake business and you didn't perhaps make a profit initially, right? But did you think that it could go beyond what that first experience?
Right. So as I said, like I was doing this in high school. It wasn't like I was thinking, oh, I'm doing this because I'm running a business. No, I was just baking and selling to my friends, and it was going well. I wasn't making big profit like I'm gonna say, okay, tomorrow I'm buying something large, but it was a way that I could say, okay, I made $10 when I started with $5, so it worked. So from there, I just continued doing that. However, afterwards, I started looking at it and I was like, well, if I can do this here on this scale, then I can scale this. So I really took a look at things. I remember I took this trip with a friend of mine, and we saw this thing called crumble cookies. And they did this weekly collection of cookies. So it's like every single week they offered new flavors of cookies with these weird flavors. And I was like, I'm going to try this. At the time, I did not even know how I was going to try it. I was just like, I'm going to try this. And as such, I started renaming some of our cupcakes. Like some of them weren't even anything special. They were just chocolate cupcakes with a chocolate icing, and we put a fudge on top, and I just rename it. At that time, I remember we called that the double chocolate fudge, and we sold it as that. And as we went on, we added flavorings and so forth. Still, at one point, I remembered I was sitting with a friend of mine and we were talking about the flavors, and I was like, we've now done like 80 flavors of this because we've remixed so much basic cakes like vanilla cakes with so many other things that now the flavors are just going crazy. So yeah.
What kind of support from that very hobby stage, very infancy stage, did you get from your family?
So I'd say because my mother, as I said, she is a big fan of her educational background and she's very traditional. So she's in the belief of go to school, you go to college, you get a good education, get a job, you work at that job, and then you retire and enjoy what you've worked for, which is what she did because she's worked one place her entire life since she was 18 and she just retired the other day at 65. So we were like, so that was always a plan for me. So when we started going into this, my mom was not a big fan. She was like, I'm paying a lot for you to go to school, so let's just stick with the school and do not do this. But in myself, I was like, I'm gonna do something, and I wouldn't say defied, but I'd say defied. and continued to do it. And I think nowadays, as it's starting to take traction and she's seeing where it could be viable long term, she's definitely on board and has been a big supporter for me.
Yeah, so in the, like I want to kind of stay there a little bit because I know it's thankfully things are changing culturally in Jamaica and in other parts of the region as well. You know, the shift from going to school, that routine, going to school, get a good education, you get a good job, you go work with somebody else, you get married, have 2 kids, have a house, you know, the dream. That's it. And your mom, you said, has had one job. Like, I'm trying to
Yes.
fathom that one job. Honor that.
So I would say it's essentially multiple jobs, but it's in one place. So it's more of like I started here and I'm leveling up over time,
Yeah.
but I'd say it's one job.
One
Yeah.
job.
So she has worked the same place for the entire time. So every time she talks about it, she talks about it greatly. So because she has this thing where she's a strong workaholic, I always say to her, if you consider entrepreneurship, you'd have done great because sometimes she'll be leaving home like 7 o'clock in the morning and not getting home till like 11 o'clock when work long done at 6 o'clock, but she's sitting like, I'm not leaving till this is perfect. So I think I took a lot of that with the way that I look at things. So for me, I'm somewhat of a perfectionist. So she and my father, they both worked at the Bank of Jamaica and they have worked there the entire time.
Wow. So, what kind of in that environment, growing up in that environment, what kind of a mental shift at a very young age you had to do to be headfast into entrepreneurship?
Essentially, I had to go around a lot of things because I think a lot of times there were so many things I didn't understand. Because I remember sitting down with my mother once and she was saying to me that it's like, I don't know what to expect with you because one day you have it, like you're just rolling it, and the other day you have no money. Like, are you just like, you're bad at feeling? And I'm like, no. But keep in mind that I own the business, so every issue comes out of my pocket. So it just works like that. And I find that I have to explain things like that to her a lot because she's definitely used to the continuous money. Like, you know, it's coming this exact day. And she likes that. For me, I don't have that because, as I say, I earn it. So sometimes you have nothing. Sometimes you're in excess. So a lot of times I have to explain that as well. I do also have to explain that I don't have like a work time. It's just whenever something needs to be done. So there's definitely a lot of shift there in order to allow her to really experience what I'm doing without having to really pressure on it. So that's really been a lot for me sometimes.
It's time for our very first break. More insights and inspiration from Levavion Bailon-DeMarquez when the Entrepreneurial You returns.
Oh, Jamaica rise, we're built with fire, passion and vibes, and through it all there's a glow inside. Let's keep our shine alive.
From the market to the factory floors, from the hillside green to golden shores.
We're reaching heights, our energy that lights the sky. Shine bright, Jamaica. Shine bright, Jamaica. Feel the rhythm, we're on track. Feel it, feel it. Together we rise, together we climb. JPS Jamaica, together we shine.
Shine from the ends, shine with your family, shine with your friends. Light up the streets and make the vibes blend. Yo, JPS, they make the shine never end.
Welcome back. Welcome back. You are indeed tuned in to the Entrepreneurial You, and today our guest is Levavion Bailon-DeMarquez, and his company is Bakedbio Foods and Snacks. Levavion, before the break, you were sharing the interesting story of your upbringing, the environment that you grew up in, and how you started with the cupcake business. Now, I want us to move into Bakedbio. When did you decide to make that transition from just doing cupcakes into what you're doing now? And you're going to tell us what you're doing now.
Right. So that transition came. I think it was some of our best times with Crav'd, but our responsibility of a good entrepreneur is to know when it's a good time to shift or to know when it's a good time to scale. So it was going great for us. We were taking on a lot more corporate clients and so forth. And amidst that, I was like, okay, what's the plan? So I thought we have to do this in our way that we don't have to go to every single client, because at this point, only way to scale is to find a way to get the sales out that it's not directly coming from us. So I reached out to stores, and every store reached out to had one of two problems. So the problem was always going to be either we didn't have a long enough shelf life on our cupcakes because we weren't really preserved product, or it was that the store already had an in-house bakery. So I was like, okay, we have to shift from the cupcakes. We'll continue doing the clients we have, because you're not going to stop business to start on something. So I'm like, okay, we'll continue with this, and we'll find something else that we can put in stores. And at that time, I remember we thought of bagels because we already were doing baking, and we were like, okay, let's try this. And before we even set it up, I was like, it was like this voice was like, please look into the market before you do this. And as I did so, I was like, there's a lot of brands who sell bagels. And it's not like they're a fast selling product, because as Jamaicans, we really don't eat that much bagels. We're already a sliced bread kind of person. So I kind of shifted. And I remember we got the inspiration for the popcorn because I host these movie nights at my home continuously. And a friend of mine came and she bought these seasonings online on Amazon, and we served the popcorn. She seasoned it and she was like, you guys need to try this. And I was like, we need to sell this. So over time, we reached out to a brand overseas that made different flavorings for chips like Lay's and so forth. And we got some of the seasonings as samples and we tried it and we were like, this is good. But there definitely needs to be a few edits. So we worked with them on editing the flavors that we now have. And that's really where the shift came from, because we knew within ourselves that we had to do something that would be able to scale much faster or be able to get sales without my direct input.
You said something, Levan, which is absolutely key. A good entrepreneur needs to know when to, in other words, pivot, right? You use that word, but that's essentially what you're saying. Just spend a little time there. For those that are listening, those that are watching, and they are perhaps, beating up themselves because something isn't working out. And I know as an entrepreneur, we can do that at times, right? Because we're hanging on to our babies, like your baby's never ugly as an entrepreneur, right? So talk to us about, from your experience, knowing when to pivot.
All right. So with that point, the reality of it is that I've met a lot of entrepreneurs who, to be honest, I think, as you said, our baby is never ugly to us. But the reality of it is you have to look at what works and what doesn't. And what doesn't work, you have to drop it. Because the reality of it is not that everything you do is going to be great. No one is great on the first try or is great all the time. There's going to be times where you have to know that, all right, this isn't working. Now is the time to stop and see where I went wrong or where I need to make a change. Because the only way you get anywhere further is to know what's your stop point. So you have to know what your stop loss is. And from there, just work your way into the next stage. Because when you're so committed to something to a point where you are blind to what that it might be a time to shift, most times you don't notice it till you're already so deep. Like you feel you can't stop, but the reality of it is that you have to know when that time comes. And that time is usually one of two times. And it's usually A, the time when you've reached the top of what you're doing, and now is the time to add things to it to get further, or B, what you're doing just isn't working, and now is the time to stop and try something else.
So much wisdom coming from Levan right here. So your company, Bakedbio, is doing popcorns.
Yes.
What else are you doing?
So at the current moment, we're just doing the 2 flavors of popcorn.
So how did you know that popcorn would be a thing? I mean, is it really a thing? Are people really eating popcorn except when they go to the movies?
Actually, they are.
Okay.
So what you notice is this. In the recent trends, you'll notice a lot of current popular brands or the more established brands have launched popcorns. Even brands you thought wouldn't, because we know National to make those biscuits, but yet they shifted into the popcorn space, because as of recently, the popcorn market is actually becoming a good market for most snack companies, because everything else has already been done. You've already had tortillas, you already have the corn fried chips. Everybody has done that. It's been there, done that. Everybody wants a new thing. The new thing for everybody is health. And there's no healthier snack that gets you the same flavor than popcorn. So everyone has made the shift. So at the current moment, popcorn is projected from last year's census was projected at about $1.3 billion a year in popcorn sales. So much that you know that celebrity brands are really just on trend, but yet still all the celebrity brands are starting to roll out popcorns as well. So it is a strong market at the current moment.
Interesting. So usually when we hear stuff like those, that comes from generally North America and so on.
Yes.
But clearly it can be extrapolated not just, to the region.
Yes.
So you're based in Jamaica. Let's talk about your expansion and plan for expansion into the rest of the region.
Right. So the intention for us is that we are definitely a Jamaican brand at heart, and we intend to serve the Jamaican community strongly. However, when we just launched, we had a lot of issues here in Jamaica because once we got everything, because I remember when we just started, because I know nothing about manufacturing or exporting,
Let's talk about that.
and I was like, okay, it's not about starting great. I will just need to start this, and all the problems that I have will be highlighted and I will fix it. So it start bad and it will get good at some point. So I started and I was like, okay, it will get there when it gets there. And each person will call, they told me one thing, and that one thing I added. And I remember when we called our first distributor here, which would have been the World Food Brands, which is owned by Grace. When we called them, they were like, okay, do you have your export license? Do you have an MIIC license? And I'm like, okay, give me a moment. I will give you a call back tomorrow. So you just give you all this information. At that time, I had nothing because I didn't know these things existed. But I couldn't say that because I was like, if they're going to take my product, I can't let them know that. So I'm just like, I played it off and I was like, okay, I'll call you back tomorrow to give you all the details about that. And I think it was that evening, I reached out to MIIC and I got through to someone and I said, okay, we'll send you an email. We got all the documentation. I think it was like 2 or 3 months later, I called them and was like, hey, remember we spoke at this point. I'm just calling to give you the details here. And after all that, they were like, we're not taking the product at this point, but you can give us a call back. And each person will call, they were like, we're not taking the product right now, especially a product that isn't already known in the market. So we were like, I'm not giving up here. Let me try something else. So I reached out to a friend of mine he's based in Florida and he runs a company called Spectra. And we have met at a friend's wedding. So apparently his company does some form of distribution in a way where it's like a third party. So it's like they don't take your product, they know the other distributors and they'll connect you. So through that person, I've met a lot of other distributors across the region and our product took with them long before it actually took anyone in Jamaica. And so we were like, okay, we're starting with exports, but we have to come back here. And as such, that's really where it went.
Did you say you got validation outside of Jamaica before you got it here? Is that what you're...
Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying here.
When I started, I didn't focus on having Jamaican guests. Like, rarely did I have Jamaican guests. They were all overseas. Something comes to mind, and somebody that I've interviewed as well is Richard Branson. And one of the things he always talks about is to say yes now and figure it out later. And you seem to have done a lot of that.
Yes.
How is that working for you?
So far, it's going great. So I'm a big fan of this. The reality of it is that since I always said to myself, I never came into entrepreneurship because I was like, okay, let me
So
start.
you didn't find entrepreneurship found you, that kind of thing? Like,
Yes.
you that, right?
Yes. So it wasn't a thing where I was like, I have to start a business and figure out what it is. It was, I started something small scale to do for church and then for my friends and it worked out and I was like, let me do this as a business. So it was not a thing we were hunting down. Since the start, realistic, we've always been a start where you are and then all your issues will be solved as you get market traction. That's the reality of it, because most things are only reasonable to spend your time on once it's actually validated. So it wouldn't make sense to sit down and work 1,000 hours on a popcorn and then in a week everybody's like, we don't like this. It's better now I spend an hour on it, push it out, and you say to me, I don't like this, but here, I'll edit this. That way I know what will be validated in the long run. And that has worked for us.
Right, so that's the feedback loop, right? So you come up with your minimum viable product.
Yeah.
You test it, you get the feedback, you come back, you work on it. Absolutely brilliant. Stay with us. Our conversation with Levavion Bailon-DeMarquez continues right after this.
What great stories do you want to tell today? We are your storytellers. We are Digital Video Concept. trendsetters, employing cutting-edge digital editing technology to deliver superior products on time, every time. Producing extraordinary imagery with high-definition cameras on the ground and in the sky. Excellence is in our nature. Call us today for all your video storytelling need. Are you ready? We are ready. Let's go!
Welcome back. It is the Entrepreneurial You, and my guest is Levavion Bailon-DeMarquez of Bakedbio Foods and Snacks. So, Levavion, before the break, you were talking about just getting this minimum viable product out, and for me as an entrepreneur, that is big because too often I find that we labor on, oh, is this perfect enough? Do I have all my ducks lined up in a row? And the truth is, you just need to start, and it's a great message that you're sending out. So as you decide to take the plunge in different areas of where you are, the stages of your business, what's next for Bakedbio?
Right, so at the current moment, as I said, as a brand, our main thing is not just to serve Jamaica, but to serve the entirety of all the regions that we're expanding into, but we're still a Jamaican brand at heart. So that's really the main thing for us. So the intention is that as we continue to do the work that we do and we expand more, the intention is that we consider ourselves a community brand. So we're intending to make a list on the Jamaica Stock Exchange coming in the future to give everybody an opportunity to be a part of Bakedbio and to really be a part of the journey.
You have big dreams to list on the
Yes, I
Jamaica
do.
Stock Exchange, right? That's not an easy feat,
It's not.
right? But of course, it's possible. It is very possible, and with the work that you have been putting in, clearly you're going to get there perhaps even sooner than you think, many of us think. What are some of the things that you know now that you need to be doing to get to that end goal?
Right. So right now, for the most part, what we've been doing is we do not want it to be a thing where the future goal skews what you're doing in the moment. So in the moment still needs to be here. You can't think of yourself, oh, in the future I'll be a listed company, so I need to act like that now. No, right now you need to fix what is happening now, and then as you go, the path will plot itself. So for us, our thing now is for expansion. So we've made it clear that we are doing Belize, and we're doing a few other countries, being Dominican Republic, Dominica, and Trinidad and Tobago, which we're all launching at the same time as we're launching the Jamaican with our new partners ILO and Bldg gas stations in September. So that's right around the corner. So realistically, for now, our short-term goal is to just get everything out perfectly and on time.
All right, you're launching in all these different areas at the
Same time.
talk about that. How is that happening? Who are some of your partners making that possible?
Right, so right now we're highly staffed to make this happen because realistically I could not have done this on my own.
Clearly,
So
I always say one is too small a number to do anything great.
yes, so at the correct moment here in Jamaica, our main persons, you may have heard from her before, our PR person who is guiding us on all these shows is Rochelle Johnson, and that would have separate from that our retail partners that we've committed to for our first launch, which is Hilo and Bldg gas stations, and as we go forth into other countries like with the help of Spectra, as well as our new partner in Belize, Ethan Gallardo.
Wow. So you are not yet 20 years old,
I am not.
and you are doing all of this stuff, going out into the region, getting all these partners. Let's talk about your strategy for that.
Yes.
How are you meeting these people? Why are they even taking you seriously? Because they're going to think, you're very young. And I say that a lot, not because I want to be ageist or anything, but it's the reality, right?
Yeah.
People always think, oh, he's just too young. I don't want to do business. I don't know. He doesn't have enough under his belt, things like that. But you have broken that age barrier, thankfully. So let's talk about how it is that you're connecting with all of these partners.
Right. So for me, I'm a strong believer of networking. Your network is your net worth. So it's a big thing for me. And what persons don't realize is that your psychological things are really a big thing for everybody. So you may not know me or anything like that, but let's say we live in the same building. Your mind goes to, okay, if you live here and I live here, we're of equal stature. So if you come up to me and ask me for $10, if I could afford $10, so can you. So let me give it to you. I think that's the same thing. So I make it my thing. I show up to everything. When events are keeping, once I know it's happening and I'm able to go, I'm there. Because the reality of it is that I may not see what it brings now, but I may meet someone there who is interesting or may be able to help. And that's always been the thing for us. So when we started, yes, because of my age, a lot of persons have said no, but a lot of persons have also said yes, and you never know unless you ask. So most of the persons I've met and I've continued to be partners with are persons that I've met through the Jamaica Stock Exchange Conference, the Realign Conference. I remember we did Tech Beach, and when we went down, like we planned this and we costed like the most of all the conferences we've ever gone to. And when I planned it and I was saying it to a friend of mine that we're doing Tech Beach, she was like, but you're not a tech company. I'm like, does that matter? And it worked out because a lot of persons we currently work with, especially companies like Securities, is coming on to help with our cybersecurity. So a lot of persons that we meet are realistically from our networks.
Right. And so I recognize as an entrepreneur, business is more about relationships than it is about business. Because people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And connecting to other people, getting to know people, that's the heart of business. And clearly that has been your experience.
Yes, it has.
For entrepreneurs and want to be entrepreneurs who are sitting on the fence, is business for me? Is entrepreneurship for me? Realistically, what would you say to them?
My advice would be this. If you're someone who, when it gets hard, you stop, this is not for you. Because it gets hard 98% of the time. That 2% is really where a lot of persons you see on the internet who's like, entrepreneurship is for everybody. Everybody needs to own. It's not. Because the truth of it is that there's a lot of sleepless nights. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of times that you're going to be sitting and thinking, did I make the wrong decision? Because it's one thing when you work somewhere, you know, okay, I have to get a steady paycheck. I must be paid. I must be here on this time. I must leave this time. There's none of that when you're the one running it. It's everybody depends on you. So you may hire someone and say, okay, you're doing the front desk person. But then 2 days later, they walk out. You don't need to do that. So unless you're able to go through all the bad times and smile in public and make people think it's going great, it's not for you. But if you're able to do that, I think you should give it a go. Because as I said, you don't need perfection. You need the bare minimum. It just needs to be somewhat viable, and all the critiques will help you get it perfect.
I like that. Just need to be somewhat viable. All the critiques to get it perfect. I know that person are watching and they're probably asking a question that I can't allow you to leave and not ask. Funding. How have you been funded?
Okay, so when we started, what we were doing was, so I'm going through both funding methods. So what we did originally, which as I said, I started with like $2,000, so it wasn't a big thing. However, when we started taking on larger projects like the stock exchange and other corporate companies, the thing about this is corporate work isn't upfront payment. It's you bring the product, we use it, and then after a time, and it may be end of week, it may be end of month. For some persons, it may be end of quarter. So the reality of you need to know where you're getting the funding from. For me, I would have met a good amount of these persons at the stock exchange conference, but once they left the conference, I never called them again because I was like, I don't really know these people like that. But not knowing them like that, like a few persons in the past, I remember them coming up to me at the conference and be like, are you looking for funding? And I called and I was like, hey, I'm having a issue. I need a loan for this. And they were like, okay, I can give you the loan on a short-term payment, send me a contract. And a lot of it came from that. So we borrowed a lot of money. Like as a project came in, there were projects so large we physically couldn't afford. But through these persons, we were able to call and they would lend us the funds to do it. And at the end of the day, when it paid off, we just paid them back. However, that doesn't work when the amounts you need are millions of dollars to buy machinery. So with us, what we did was, at the time, I didn't have machinery. I didn't have anything. I had partners overseas who already had their factories and they were already doing our seasonings. So I called and I said, okay, I will buy extra seasoning from you if you can put together samples for me and send them to me in a reasonable timeline. And I remember when I said that, she was like, what do you mean extra thing? I mean, I had to clarify, I will buy 2 flavors. So it means that now, instead of I'm buying 100 points, I'll buy 500 if you can send me samples of the product. Because remember, I had no machinery, I had no way to make the samples. So I was literally leveraging their future business to get these samples. So when at some point, they were like, okay, that sounds like a deal, we'll send you in writing, because nothing you say means nothing to us. They sent it in writing, and from there, we got the samples in. And I remember when we were pitching to the first few persons overseas, we had no factory, we had no plan of how we're making this. We know we have to buy the machine, we just don't have the money. So when we reach out to all these persons who have signed distribution contracts, they say, okay, we'll take this much on this timeline over the next year or 2 years. I'm like, okay, and now we're in the race. And I went out and I pitched to other private investors, and I was like, I'm not asking you to come on to the company. What I'm asking is for you to invest in the contract. So I leveraged what I had each time to get to the next step. So at first, we didn't have a machinery, so we leveraged what we did have, which was an agreement for seasoning with a company to get her samples. And after that, we leveraged the contracts we got from those samples for the funding to buy machines.
I am really, really excited about this. Listening to your story, Levavion, I'm thinking you have strategy. You're smart. You have a lot of business acumen. You've garnered that. I mean, and to know you grew up in an environment that was not business friendly necessarily. I want you to just share with me, where did all that come from? Because I'm impressed. I'm inspired.
Right. So I would say most of it is catch it as you go. So you don't know it, but you will never know everything. It's a learning process every single day. So for me, it's really as I go, I will figure it out. So each time I do something new, it's really, I've been inspired, or I would have spoken to someone who has been there, done that, and have said to me, hey, try this. So it's always good to know persons in the industry, but if you know no one, advice is just go at it, and you will meet people. You will figure it out. Even if you meet no one, you will figure it out, because experience is the best way. Because let's say you go to college and they teach you about business, they will never teach you enough for you to get a thriving business going. The best way is to get hands-on experience. So I'd say as you go at it, you'll figure it out. It comes with time. So for me, I have a lot more to learn.
Levavion Bailon-DeMarquez, such a pleasure it has been to host you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure for me being here.
That wraps our enlightening conversation with Levavion Bailon-DeMarquez. I truly hope that you're leaving as inspired, motivated, enlightened as I am. Stay tuned. There's more coming up right here on the Entrepreneurial.
Coming up, Liberty Tech Talk.
It's now time for Liberty Tech Talk, brought to you by Liberty Business, rooted in the Caribbean, committed to you.
Today's workplace is not just about where you work. It's about how your space works for you. The current workplace is not just about desks or meeting rooms anymore. It's about flexibility, mobility, as well as experience. With hybrid work being a permanent part of the equation, companies now have to rethink how their spaces can support real people and real work, whether it's through quiet focus or team collaboration and everything in between. Currently, we're seeing a shift to activity-based environments. These are spaces designed for either brainstorming or quiet areas just to focus, or just casual zones for your employees to connect with each other. Why, you may ask? Simple answer is collaboration drives productivity. However, it's not just limited to those that are physically in the room. There are tools such as smart conferencing systems, digital whiteboards, and cloud-based platforms that support hybrid teams and hybrid work. Let's talk a little bit about smart spaces. A lot of times we don't think about the technology that's on the line. So things like trust access, just to ensure that persons are able to go smoothly through their day-to-day. These are built on strong, reliable, and fast connectivity, including Wi-Fi. Smart spaces isn't just a trend. It's where strategy meets technology. Liberty Business has the tools to ensure that your workplace can work smarter.
was Liberty Tech Talk. It's now time for Community Connection. It's a special segment where we shine the spotlight on exciting projects, inspiring initiatives, and sometimes mini features. Let's dive right in. Today, we're highlighting LeaderCast Kingston, Jamaica's premier leadership development event, bringing together some of the most influential voices in business, entrepreneurship, and community impact. LeaderCast Kingston is more than just a conference. It is a catalyst for growth, collaboration, and transformation for leaders across the region. Attendees can expect dynamic keynote speakers, interactive sessions, and powerful networking opportunities, all designed to equip you with the tools and inspiration to lead with vision and integrity. So whether you're a seasoned executive or an emerging leader, LeaderCast Kingston is your chance to learn from the best and connect with like-minded professionals. Don't miss your opportunity to be part of this transformative experience. Get your tickets now at spurropen.com/leadercast. That's SPURR open.com/leadercast. That was Community Connection. Every great business journey is built on vision, resilience, and the courage to innovate. Today's conversation with Levavion Bailon-DeMarquez reminds us that with clarity of purpose and commitments to excellence, Caribbean entrepreneurs can shine. If you're ready to keep shining, growing, and building your own legacy, be sure to subscribe to the Entrepreneurial podcast, available wherever you listen, from Apple Podcasts to Spotify and beyond. This episode is proudly brought to you by Liberty Business, JPS, Digital Video Concept, Madison Shy, and Heneka Watkis-Porter.com. Dive deeper, get inspired, and join a community of change makers. And as Zig Ziglar says, you were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. What would? Attendees can expect dynamic skill. Bldg. And Bailon-DeMarquez, and Mr. Bailon, that's why it's not called Bakedbio Foods, right?
Yeah.
Bakedbio Foods, that's not.